next presentation, last year, Mike had brought a motor to the motor generator setup to the conference at the Hayden Eagles, which was last July. And it was kind of a hybrid between multiple different type of machines. There's some Bedini principles in there, some Paul Babcock switching type circuits, some low drag generator type concepts were incorporated in it. And it ran on a battery bank, and that battery bank has not been charged for months and months and months, although it's running at thousands of RPM, producing mechanical work, turning a generator, producing electricity, yet the battery bank's not dying. One of the key elements of that motor is that it had an air core, which Bedini had spent a lot of time working on air core, and it was a big revelation for Paul Babcock to start dealing with air core versus iron core. And our next presenter has been, he's a chiropractor in his former life, maybe, and is down in southern Idaho and has been researching these type of technologies for decades. And one of his partners, Norm, had known John Bedini, I think, back to the early 90s, and is the one that actually provided John Bedini with the Lockridge machine and some old notes and stuff like that nobody else has ever really seen. And so Norm had been really instrumental in a lot of those developments and some collaboration with John Bedini. And Mike had been working with Norm for a while, actually quite a long time, and he's considers Norm to be his go-to man when it comes to these type of technologies. So in this presentation, he is going to cover some the operating principles of the motor that he called the RPG, and which was the one demonstrated last year. And then we have a new, well, not new, this is maybe 30 years old or so, motor operating under some different principles that was developed by Norm, and Mike is going to share some of this work with you here today. So help welcome Mike Clarke.
So Norm he's got all these things in his shop, and one of the things that fascinated me was this motor. And I'd be sitting there, I'd be toying with that all the time. And he says, "You're pretty fascinated with that." And I says, this is incredible. I said, "What is it?" He says, "It's just a motor I built to test some principles." And I says, "Well, that's really cool." And we had been talking more and more about free energy. And in my background, when I was young, I built my own radio, built some motors, and that kind of thing never scared me off at all. And I actually started at one point. I was going to DeVry Institute of Technology to be an electronics engineer, an electronics tech, like Paul Babcock did. And I got homesick and went home, and that dream kind of went by the wayside. But I'd been interested in it, in that sort of thing, for a long time. And Norm and I started talking about this, and he said, "Take that motor home and see if you can get it to run." And so I took it home, and I got it to run, probably about as good as it's running right now. And I told Norm, I said, "I got it running." And he says, "You did, really?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he came out, and I showed him how it was, and he says, "Well, let's take it back to the shop." And so we started talking more and more about free energy and brainstorming about it. And he says, "You should meet John Bedini." He said, "John and I have been friends for a long time. We can go up and get with John and Gary and talk to John about it." So I said, "That'd be great." So he called up Gary, and Gary said, "Yeah, Norm, come on, bring him on up and let's talk. It's been a long time since we've seen you." So we came up, and so we spent a day and a half with John, and that was the first time I saw the Bedini cold window motor. And, that was a pretty incredible machine to me. I thought that was amazing. And so I couldn't quit thinking about it. And so we had like a 10-hour drive to go back home. And I'm thinking about it, and I told Norm, I says, "Norm, we need to build that motor." And he said, "You think so?" And I says, "Yeah." He says, "Why do you want to build it?" And I said, "I want to power my house." And he says, "Do you think you can do that?" And I says, "That motor will do work. We can have that motor do work." And he says, "Well, we'll do that one better." So we got back home. Norm, being an engineer, he designed up this concept that he had in his head for some time. And so we sat down and we went over the plans of that. And he says, "What do you think?" And I said, "It looks good. I think we can do it." And he says, "Can you build it?" And I says, "Yes." And so the machine work we had done, and all of that sort of thing. And I built the rest. I cut everything else out myself, and put that motor together. And it's all because of this guy right here. It was this that got us started. This is what we had on there last year for a generator. This was our second prototype. We built that first prototype that we had running as our motor last year, and this was our second prototype. Now let me tell you about this. We thought it was kind of like the Tim Taylor thing, from Home Improvement, more power. Oh. We put lots more powerful magnets in that thing, and all we got was a machine that tried to shake itself to death. It just vibrated like mad. Now, the reason for that is because of that more powerful magnet and the speed at which it would start to go. The coils in here wouldn't get a chance to unload fully, and that magnet would be coming up and hitting that, and it would be trying to repel it before it ever got up to where it was supposed to be being repelled. And I'm telling you, if you look on the plate of this, I got holes everywhere that I drilled because I had to screw that thing down to the table to keep it from just flying off the table. Now, and the interesting thing about this motor was the armature in this weighed 55 pounds. And so last year when we had that running in the display room and so on, we're spinning 100 pounds basically of flywheel. And the interesting thing is the type of power that this put out. So this is another air core motor, right? And so we're using this, we decided we were going to use this as a gen head. And so we have all these coils, and in this motor we had 18 gauge wire on our coils, and we had a more powerful magnet, and so we hooked it up and we put these pulleys on there, and we're spinning that motor and using it as a generator. And those of you last year who looked, we were getting anywhere from 135 to 150 volts of power. But this thing, the performance of the motor has improved so greatly in the last year. It's head and shoulders above what it was a year ago, and it's been a lot of fun. It gets exciting. My wife can always tell when I've been out working on the motor if everything's been going right. She'll say, "What happened?" Because I'm excited. I'm jacked up. Because I know we're making progress. So look here. You saw that. I turned on a little 11-watt bulb. Well, that's like not having anything on. That motor doesn't know it's there. And so we start adding. There's 36. It doesn't appreciably change anything with 36 watts coming on. And it's not until we get to 60 watts and above that we really see a whole lot of change in how the motor runs. And you'll see that here. I think we have both of the 50s on right there. Not 50s, both the 25s. We had 50 watts running there, and it made virtually no difference in how the motor runs. So the exciting thing about that is that we're getting useful work out of that motor, and it's not costing us anything.